The James Show Podcast.
I have two bigger stories than the Epstein list not being released. Can you believe that? That's my third biggest story today. On a normal news day, that would be the top story. However, the Texas flooding in the Hill Country, still our top story of the day. And then right next to it is another left-wing terror attack, this one against an ICE facility in Alvarado. And this is happening in our backyard. So if you don't get the full skinny of the show, if you can't stick around for all 3 hours, this is the perfect one to start the podcast habit on. So let's just go ahead and get right into it, because yesterday when we were talking about the Hill Country flooding, 100 people dead. We don't want to politicize it immediately. I know this happened last Friday, but this was the first time we got to do a whole show about it. And we did a really good job. Me and you get credit too, did a really good job of keeping politics out of the show yesterday. We weren't making fun of people's in the media's goofy reactions to it and whatnot. We weren't dipping too hard into the media asking Trump questions that immediately got political and biased. But today, gloves are off. Let's start with the first time President Trump was asked about this that I saw. He's on the tarmac next to an airplane, so it's super loud. And he comes up, and this was just on Sunday, and he gives a brief statement about the Hill Country flood. Before he was asked anything, he wasn't prompted to do so. This wasn't a scheduled press conference. No one knew what he was going to talk about. But you could see, like, he was walking horizontally across the frame in most people's camera shot. He saw the gaggle of reporters, and you could kind of tell he just shrugged his shoulders. He's like, yeah, I'll go give him 5 minutes. I'll go say a few words. So he walks up, and without taking any questions or anything, just gives an opening statement, which I thought was sort of the perfect layout. If you're a politician, you don't want to get political. You don't want to be seen as getting political. You don't want to get too wrapped up in anything other than the human tragedy that is the Texas flood.
Thank you very much. We've been in touch with Governor Abbott and very close to Governor Abbott and everybody in Texas. Kristi Noem has, as you know, been there and will continue to be there. And we're working very close with representatives from Texas, and it's a horrible thing that took place. Absolutely horrible. So we say God bless all of the people that have gone through so much, and God bless the state of Texas. It's an incredible place.
See, so he was avoiding all politics, and Donald Trump is not going to do that forever. But we all recognize there's sort of a soft zone around a tragedy like this that makes you just sound inhumane if you immediately go for politics. And then the first question he takes, and I left the beginning in there. Any questions? Just to let you know that this is what they did coming out of the gate. Of all the things they could have asked about, we still have, this is Sunday. We still have a body count that's going up. We're still in rescue mode, not recovery mode. Immediately, political question. It's just kind of sickening, isn't it?
Any questions, please?
President, are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later. But right now, they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
All right, so who's the more humane person here? You still want to phase out FEMA? Nah, look, we'll talk about that later. He even has an entrance ramp to get on the highway of political bashing. And he denies getting on. He dodges at the beginning. Now, actually, he gets a question asked about like some trade issues, some trade letters and tariff situation with some trade deals that they're working out. And then after that, the reporters go right back to politics. A couple in a row, actually.
Democrats are claiming more federal cuts for the debts over in Texas.
Did you hear what she said? People are blaming your federal cuts for the deaths in Texas. Yeah, just people. Yeah, I can ask the most biased question ever, but if I put the word people in front of it, it makes it legit.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
So look, he just waved that person away. I'm not taking this political question bear trap. I'm going to go to the next question. And unfortunately, it's political too.
Investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the National Weather Service or in the emergency coordination.
No,
they did not.
They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that, what a situation that all is. And that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup. But I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe. and it's just so horrible to watch.
You know, this Donald Trump is a lot more mature than Donald Trump 1.0. Donald Trump 2.0 had a chance there. And we said, this is Biden's setup. What he's really saying is, what little cuts we've made haven't changed anything in the way weather's forecasted or the staffing or changed the response time. It's not like we just had an empty office there and no one got an alert. And he even added in there, but I wouldn't blame Biden either. Very grown up here. One more. He got a couple more questions that weren't on the topic, and then the last question that kind of ran him off. Are you going to hire back some of the meteorologists that you fired? Really? Just like if we had a few more government workers, that would have saved lives. Cutting government kills people, sure.
In light of the floods, do you think that the federal government needs to hire back any of the meteorologists who were fired in the last few months?
You know what the purpose of that is? And he's going to say, I don't know. The purpose of that is there some way we can stick the deaths and the negative emotions that everyone is feeling right now, can we hang that on Trump? Because that sure would help the narrative. Whether it's true or not, whether it's actually factual that there was some shortcoming because of cuts to FEMA or cuts to the NOAA, or if we just had 4 more meteorologists, all these girls would have lived. No, it's just some way that they can take the terrible, tragic story of the day, the deaths of 100 of your neighbors, and exploit it for politics. I know you don't like the media, but I swear you don't hate them half as much as they deserve. And here to give us an assist with both of them from the TexasScorecard.com, Brandon Walton's back on the show. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start with the flooding and the Hill Country flooding. First of all, huge tragedy. It all breaks our hearts, but the reaction for some people to go straight to politics in a natural disaster like this, can we stop doing that? Can we stop blaming hurricanes and floods and obvious acts of God on the fact that, oh, well, we had a budget cut in some department in D.C. and so people died?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen, way too many people doing this, especially on Twitter, where you've seen people, specifically on the left, blaming, if lawmakers didn't pass, XYZ bill, this wouldn't have happened. This was a catastrophe, right? This was a devastating thing. It was unexpected. And, I think, people's hearts need to be with the families and with the people who are affected by this instead of immediately thinking about politics. I think it just kind of shows you how sick some people can be when it comes to these situations.
Well, I don't know these people because I have plenty of friends who are Democrat voters. They're on Team Blue, and they didn't react like, we've seen some of the ones that have gotten a little bit of attention, and rightfully so, because, I'm hesitant to just go pick up the worst opinion I can find from some random nobody across America. But you had people who were like political appointees and pediatricians and people in positions of standing that were coming up with just some horribly dismissive takes about the deaths of children in Texas.
Yes, and one that comes to mind that folks may have seen already, but was somebody who was a political appointee in Houston and Harris County, who was saying essentially that well, it's not they had it coming because these were a bunch of white girls. I mean, just absolutely horrific stuff. Luckily, you've seen the mayor there, John Whitmire, condemn that and say that he's going to get her off of the board that she was appointed to. But still very, very sobering stuff to see.
All right, we're talking with Brandon Walton from Texas Scorecard. The other big story of the day is a Texas story, and we have the ICE attack in Alvarado. 10 people, or actually, I guess 11 people are rolled up into this, but 10 people are charged in the attack itself. One guy for tampering with evidence after the fact. And, it's kind of bothersome when you see some crazy lone wolf person on the right or left, because we have seen it both ways. There was the guy in Minnesota that shot the state reps. There was the lone wolf gunman who shot the Jewish people coming out of the museum in D.C. a while back. The one lone guy who did the flamethrower and the Molotov cocktails. But it's kind of more of a concern when you can get 10 people to agree to a terror attack like this.
Well, 10 people, and then plus, there was an 11th person that was charged separately for allegedly attempting to destroy evidence and obstruct the investigation. But you actually saw, these people that were charged, they had flyers calling for a, quote, class war against ICE. They had a flag that said "Resist fascism, fight oligarchy," and all this homemade tactical equipment like body armor and ballistic plates. Very, very concerning stuff, especially just off of the heels. I mean, this actually happened, late on the night of July 4th, but then we see what happened in McAllen yesterday, where you had a similar shooting at a Border Patrol facility down there, where an agent was targeted by someone firing from a distance with a similar weapon. This is not good, and this certainly needs to stop.
So how many terror attacks, coordinated, organized terror attacks, can Antifa do before they're considered a terrorist organization?
I mean, that's a great question, right? Certainly, we've seen, just potentially a couple in the last few days. I think that, this is something people need to be really concerned about. These aren't the only two that we've seen. I mean, these are the two that we see now. But, don't forget Antifa's long history of these kinds of violent acts, violent riots, protests, etc. It's very concerning.
Yeah, and so the difference, though, I think, in between the Alvarado attack and the McAllen attack wasn't the McAllen attack just one guy yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. It was one agent that was targeted there. But the FBI says they're investigating whether or not this group in Alvarado was related to that, or whether they had any connections.
Right. Brandon Walton, Texas Scorecard. I see something I'm not going to get to today, but I might be talking about later in the week. You guys are still documenting bad apple teachers here in Texas and their sexual abuse of our kids.
Yes, even throughout the summer, you actually see that those stories do continue. Something to look forward to, though, some light on the horizon, is that the governor has signed into law, and it'll go into effect, I believe, September 1st. A new law actually giving the families of these victims essentially the ability to go after, to sue the school districts if they were acting like negligent or were otherwise working to cover this up, which unfortunately happens in a lot of these cases. So hopefully that helps things once that law goes into effect.
Right. And if you go check it out, Texas Scorecard, they've got your back on a lot of these state level issues, the Hill Country flooding, the attacks in McAllen and Alvarado, the bad apple teachers, the new one that just got 4 new felonies last week. One include trafficking, and that's 7 state certified Como ISD educators. That's 7 from one district that y'all outlined, and y'all were telling me the story about 6 from Allen ISD just last week. So you guys have your work cut out for you.
Yes, unfortunately, the stories haven't stopped, but we're not going to stop reporting on them.
Well, I love your website. I'm a big fan, and I encourage everyone, TexasScorecard.com, if you want to keep up with Texas state level news. I know we've got it covered on the national front with Fox News and all that entails, and on the local outlets, but this is sort of that mid-state level stuff that it's a valuable resource. So thank you, Brandon Waltons. Listen, one thing I want you to remember in the background when we talk about some of these people who just have some of the worst opinions you've ever heard, I'm going to play you Sadie Perkins, the one that's out of Houston, one of the 2 big ones out of Houston. This is a lady who was a mayoral appointee. She was on the Food Insecurity Board in Houston. Yeah, because that's what you need to spend taxpayer money on, food insecurity. There's no one starving in town. They're just not real secure in their food. That's ridiculous. She was also part of the Freedmen Farmers Market, whatever, panel, too. And this, I want you to remember stories like this, because every one of these programs is pretty much a employment grift for people who disagree with you politically. These are political actives. Who do you think is going to be on the Food Insecurity Board? Any Republicans? Any conservatives? Any libertarians? Any politically neutral people? No, that's a 100% Democrat activist employment program. Just like every Title IX program, just like all these food desert programs, just like when we got to study whether or not we're going to have a choo-choo train that goes from here to Houston, or we're going to support some random black-only dance theater in Dallas. These are all employment programs for people who hate you and who disagree with you politically. But before we get to that, this is Elizabeth in Electra. And didn't you call yesterday? Weren't you the lady who used to live down there, and you're in Electra now over on the other side of Wichita Falls?
Yes, sir.
Okay, same guy. Oh, you had great info yesterday. What you got for me today?
Well, now that I'm informed on this particular incident, I just wanted to reiterate that area, specifically in Kerrville, the hill country, it acts like a canyon. So if anybody has been to a canyon or national park that includes a canyon, the moment it starts raining, you have to get out. I don't know about these people, whether they were aware of things, whether they ignored warnings because there were warnings that were set off. I don't know if the camp counselors were from the area. Maybe they were visitors too. But the fact of the matter is, in that area, anybody who is familiar with that area in the greater San Antonio area, we all know and recognize that subtropical trough line coming up from Mexico with a high dome pressure to the northwest is almost always, that I've seen in my almost 50 years down in that area, going to result in the extreme flash flooding that occurs in that area. It is a flash flood zone. There are some signs in some places. I don't know if they're everywhere in the area because I've not been everywhere in the area. But it's very typical. It's very sad. I don't think alarms anymore. Alarms, the governor's talking about putting sirens down there, and that's great. That'll work in some instances, but I'm gonna say this on the radio, and I mean it because this is the way it is in that area and places just like it. Once the rain starts, it's too late.
Understood.
People need to be aware of the weather and the geography where they camp. I'm sorry to have to say this. I'm not trying to be mean or not feeling right. I'm just...
Well, that doesn't satiate a lot of people, Elizabeth, because people have a tendency to need to blame somebody. That people died. Well, who did something wrong? How can we prevent this from ever happening in the future? And the sad news is we aren't God.
Informed visitors. Have the camp counselors that, automatically I'm thinking they should have had somebody from each cabin on that camp property sitting up watching the weather.
Well, I think they had people who were awake overnight. The reports I've seen is they did have people who were awake overnight.
Then they're not from that area and they're not familiar with it. I think a combination of information from the area, including the dangers and when is the time to get out, because waiting till 3 hours and alarms and sirens are already going off, it's too late.
Understood.
Because you can get out and you'll go down the road and you're going to get caught or cut off by floodwaters. That whole area between there and, what is that? I'm just going to say Highway 90.
Okay.
Between there and Highway 90, it's like a canyon. Everywhere you go, it's a hill country. And you're going to get cut off by rain. You're going to get caught in it. You're going to get stuck. If you're not up on a very high hilltop, I would have canceled if I had plans to go there for the 4th of July. I would have canceled, knowing that it had been raining there for days and seeing the forecast and the weather and the subtropical trough line coming up. I would not have gone because that acts very similar to a tropical depression and a hurricane that's stationary and it rains out right in one place.
All right. Well, thanks for calling back, Elizabeth. I got to take a break, but, as someone who used to live down there and is a little more familiar with the territory, I appreciate hearing your thoughts on this. Thanks, Elizabeth. This is Sadie Perkins, and I'm not going through and picking out just the nobodies who say the craziest things. This is a lady who's a political appointee multiple times over on different boards across Houston. And I can't stress enough that whenever you have these programs like these food insecurity boards or whatever the heck else the government project is, it's almost always an employment program for political activists and political activists who not only disagree with you, but they hate you.
I know I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but Camp Mystic is a whites-only girls Christian camp.
Okay, first off, not true. It's not a whites-only girl Christian camp. They definitely allow minorities. Some of the minorities are all over the website, and some of the minorities are among the dead, lady. But no, go ahead. Continue. Please, make this a race thing.
They don't even have a token Asian. They don't have a token black person. It is a all-white white only, conservative Christian camp. If you ain't white, you ain't right, you ain't getting in, you ain't going. Period.
Okay, let me stop it here again. Does that describe any institution in America today? Is there anywhere that's it's white only, white, and if you ain't white, you ain't right, and you ain't getting in? Does that apply to any company, institution, camp, church, TV show, anything? Now let's ask if you can substitute a different word in there. Are there blacks only institutions and camps and spaces and companies? That's so crazy that she would even make that accusation when that thing isn't even allowed to exist in America. I mean, technically, I guess legally, would it even be allowed to exist? But if it is, name one. You can't. So she is fighting against a fantasy. Not only is Camp Mystic not a whites only camp, there's no such thing as a whites only anything in America.
And I think that context needs to be said in this matter.
Why is that?
It's not to say that we don't want the girls to be found, whatever girls that are missing or whatever right now, but you best believe, especially in today's political climate,
Especially, of course.
If this were a group of Hispanic girls, especially with them being in East Texas, it should be most likely Hispanic. If this were a group of Hispanic girls out there, this would not be getting this type of coverage that they're getting. No one would give a and all these white people, the parents of these little girls, would be saying things like they need to be deported, they shouldn't have been here in the first place, and yada, yada, yada. So before y'all come at me, before y'all start leaving...
Hey, I love the idea that the suffering of minority children is ignored in this country. Like we haven't had congressmen getting themselves arrested trying to bust into detention centers to make sure the minority children from other countries are okay. Like we haven't had we didn't have a year's worth of riots over the minority children who were harmed in the form of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. Think about how much attention those deaths got compared to, can you name one white person that was killed by a cop and it got half of that attention? I'm like, not only is she wrong, she just has the whole world 180 degrees backwards. And I love this idea that even if it was an all-white Christian organization, it is having an organization that only allows one race of people in it. Is that now a bad thing? Because I'd love to hear your thoughts on BET. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the NAACP or any of these scholarship programs that only benefit. Oh, okay. There's a level of disconnect here that's just unbelievable.
Hate comments on my page about, oh, these are just kids and they don't know no better. The parents of these children who are choosing, and it is a choice in 2025, it is definitely a freaking choice to go into East goddamn Texas and to make a all-white enclave exclusionary just for white people, with all the black people in East Texas, with all the Hispanic people in East Texas. Somehow, some way, you have carved out an all-white...
All right, hang on. Obviously not in East Texas. I made a geography mistake earlier today, so I'm not going to beat her up too bad about that, because that's like the least important mistake she makes. But good Lord. So making an enclave that just serves one specific demographic evil. You think she has any videos worried about the Sharia cities or the epic city that's planned or the many Muslim-only cities that are planned? No, so she's not really worried about people making racially segregated spaces. She's just an anti-white racist. She hates you, if you're assuming you're white. She hates me, that's for damn sure. She hates my 4 kids. What a terrible human being. She'll go on to accuse us of making concentration camps and the whole laundry list of liberal grievances here. But let me tell you something. If your reaction to children dying is, how can I exploit this politically? Or that's okay, they're from this group that I hate. You need to go check yourself. You need to go check your soul. You are a broken, evil human being that needs to be fixed. And Sadie Perkins, you need to be fixed. And it should scare the dog snot out of all of us that this lady got appointed to anything. Food and Security Board. You know, that just sounds like it was just the most hokey idea to begin with. This is who you're hiring. This is who government hires. This is who every single one of these programs, whether it's a DEI program or some other wokey program. Well, we got to have a farmer's market, or we've got to have a choo-choo train, or we've got to have more public libraries. This is who they're hiring. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Kind of disgusting stuff. Coming up next, another disgusting story. Another attack by a leftist group. This is now a shooting that happened at the ICE detention facility in Alvarado, just down the road. And we got to have another adult conversation. How many terror attacks do Antifa-related people, Antifa-linked people, have to commit before they're considered a terror group? What number are we up to now? I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.